This episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob is not brought to you by Arrow Video, which is a real shame because they're great. Maybe one day. Welcome to I Was a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, and yes, I was a teenage film snob. Ladies and gentlemen, every now and then you do get the chance to meet someone in life who you cannot help but want to speak to again and again and again. If we're very lucky, we get to find those people who share all of our interests, or most of them, and we get to have burgeoning friendships with. My guest today is someone who was on my previous podcast, Past the Remote. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet and one of my favorite people to talk about anything with, but especially movies. Please welcome the very dashing Nick Owen.
James, what a pleasure to be joining you on your new podcast.
We're talking before the show. Sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry, a smooth start. Well, you can tell we've done this before. I was going to say, I've long thought of you as my comedy soulmate, and I still think, even though we don't catch up as often as we'd like, I still think that rings true. Just sometimes you'll send me a text message which contains absolute gibberish nonsense that only you and I would get, and I think we've still got it.
Absolutely. I was thinking before. I was talking to Tina the other day when we were talking about what topic we're going to talk about tonight. And you told me who it was. And there's a joke we used to have when we worked together, and we'd describe everything as spicy or muy caliente. And so I went ahead and photoshopped that director with some tacos and.
I laughed for longer than a grown man should at your stupid photoshopping attempt.
And I was laughing my head off, and Tina was like, "What are you laughing at?" And I was like, it'll take too long to explain, but let me try. So we used to do it. We used to do a show together. And as I keep telling people, it's not dead; it's just on hiatus. But we used to do Past the Remote together, and I've been reflecting a lot about it, I guess, in the last couple of weeks leading up to tonight. Because it was so much fun. It was such a great show that we did. I always think about some of my favorite moments were that we used to always have dinner together. It was such a cool thing. You come over to Deschamps, and Tina would cook food, and we'd all sit down and break bread together. Which I don't know how other podcasts do it, but I'm guessing not that. But just hey, let's hang out, have a meal, and then just talk about movies.
Well, I found it was a really great way to. So we obviously would catch up, have dinner, and then record the podcast after that. And you've broken the ice. I mean, not that you really need to when you're as close of friends as we all are, but it was a real smooth transition into we'd just be talking, and then all of a sudden we'd be recording what we're saying. So I thought it worked really, really well. But I should also pull you up previous two podcasts, because of course we did attempt to do a podcast of going through every episode of the US version of The Office as well.
Do you know, I always forget about it, and then Facebook will remind me with that photo that we took, for the logo. Yeah. We did that. I think we got 6 episodes in, and then we're like, okay,
Yeah. I thought we got further, but I mean, I could be misremembering, of course.
Well, I think we recorded 6 episodes, but we did 2 episodes per show.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the realization probably hit of just how long we would be doing it if we were going to do 1 episode per week.
And I think also and this is probably where Tina started to lose interest. Not that she didn't like doing the show. She was always very accommodating, but she really likes The Office like we do. And then I was like, look, Nick and I end up spending half the episode talking about movies, so we should just do a movie show. And you're like, yeah, that's great. And Tina was like, okay. And Tina doesn't watch anywhere near as many movies as you and I do. And I think of that, which is well, it was about The Office and now it's not. So
yeah. And I think if I remember correctly as well, sorry, I won't go on about our old podcast anymore.
No, you're okay.
I have a feeling that was right in the middle of Game of Thrones, the phenomenon that was Game of Thrones, before it kind of went a bit downhill right at the end. And I think that just, we might talk about the Office episode in question, and then it would just turn to Game of Thrones chat.
Yeah. So. Look, we had a good run. I loved doing Past the Remote. The other thing I remember, one memory that sticks out to me is the episode I was talking to you about before we recorded, where we're going to do an episode where we talk about the 5 best battles. We take 5 different sets of characters who would never meet and who would win in a fight. And Tina was working the next day. She had to like get a whole bunch of stuff done. So she's like, look, I'll do the start of the show and then I'm going to leave and you guys can do the topic. And you and I are probably 30 minutes into this discussion about who would win out of Gandalf and Dumbledore. And you just hear from Tina, nerds, like from upstairs. Meanwhile, she's a huge fan of both those franchises.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, I don't think I know a bigger Harry Potter fan than her.
Yeah, I know. Oh, it was so funny. And then the last thing I always think of, these are my three biggest memories from that show. So obviously having dinner, that being called nerds by a self-proclaimed nerd herself, and the time we had to stop recording because there was a bird in the wall.
Sorry, how did I forget that? I don't know why I don't think of that sort of on a daily basis. That was the funniest. I think you were like trying to like corral it out of your house with like a tray, like a baking tray or something like that.
Yeah, so the house we lived in had a colorbond roof, so there was a gap, and birds would fall down the wall all the time. And the previous owners or previous renters were like, look, this is a problem. We'll put a plug in the wall. So they'd cut a hole in this wall. And yeah, so what we'd have to do is take the plug out, and then what I would often do is put a flywire screen in front of it to try and like trap it so it would like jump on, and then try and just guide it out the door. And it was always a nightmare, and the dogs would go crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So like I remember like the night that happened, we stopped the episode and then we came back and we were like, so we've been gone for half an hour. We just had to get a bird out of the wall. No context to the audience.
I think that probably what we missed there was keeping that recording, keep the recording going and releasing that as like some bonus content or something like that.
Well, there was no Patreon back in the day. Now, like I could have
That's
flung
right,
it for a couple of bucks. Nice one. Well, obviously you had to be on the show. You had to be one of the very first guests on the show now that I'm doing this one. Because as I said, you are one of my favorite people to talk about movies with. Because I think we do have very similar interests in film, but not always. And I think it really brings out a really good discussion. And obviously, if people can't tell, we make each other laugh quite a bit as well. So got to get Nick on. And what we're doing with this show, which is a little bit different, is we will talk about a topic. We're going to do a list. As you know, I love a list, and that was something that was very common on Pass the Remote. Let's talk about the top 5 these movies, and tonight's no exception. But like we never, unless I'm forgetting, and it's quite possible, I'm an old man now. Look, I'm in my mid-30s. We've never really talked about like how you got into film, and like where it began, like whether it was a childhood love or whether you kind of found it in your late teens and stuff. So I always tell everyone, look, we know I was a teenage film nerd, but were you? Where did it all start for you?
Look, I would definitely not put myself in that category. I just don't think I cared enough to delve deep in films when I was a sort of young teenager. I think like a lot of people of our generation, sad to think that that's now like a few removed. It's my love of film started with, for me, it was Sunday night. We were allowed to go up to our local video store. You'd get an overnight and then 2 weeklies for, I don't know how much because I never paid. Thanks, Mum and Dad. And that's where films for me started to become a bit of an event and something that you'd look forward to. So that real thrill of going in there, scouring, there'd always be a new release you were pretty keen to get your hands on. But as well, like digging deep and finding those weeklies that it's like, here's Commando, a Schwarzenegger film from the 80s where he's going to murder 500 people, Can we get this, please? And so that's where it really, I guess my love of a film as more of an event would have started. And then I think I am unashamedly a product of the films that I started to love as I grew up as a teenager. And so I think back to some of my favorite movie-going experiences. I can vividly remember going to see with my brother The Matrix 2. I can't think off the top of my head what the tag for that one. Reloaded, thank you, yes. Which I tell you, back in 2002, that CGI of him fighting Smith was pretty special.
It's still not too bad. I don't know if you've visited recently. It's not too bad.
Yeah, that trilogy is a pretty regular rewatch for me. I'm a big fan. And then seeing that, and then just making a spur of the decision moment to see X-Men 2 as well. I mean, they were out at the same time, and it was like one was playing about half an hour later, and that really summed up. I am a product of those two. Still love sci-fi. I love like deep thinking sci-fi and concepts like the Matrix. And then from seeing the X-Men, I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about the Marvel franchise. We're both big fans of Zack Snyder's DC universe as well.
Yeah.
So it kind of bloomed from there. And another shout out I'll give to just a specific movie which really was life-changing was the original Iron Man, which I remember seeing in 2007. I think that was the year it came out. And this was before people I didn't know who Iron Man was. I went into it just thinking this looks like a pretty good like popcorn flick. And my mind was blown. I thought, how is it possible there's someone this cool? And I thought that bit at the end when he's sitting down eating a hamburger and he says, "I am Iron Man," was pretty much me like hooked for life, I think.
It's a pretty perfect film. Like even now, like even 14, that film's almost 15 years old. And you wouldn't notice it. I haven't watched it in a couple of years. I think the last time I watched Iron Man 1 was the year of Infinity War. So only about, that's 4 years ago now. And I remember even then thinking, you know what? Like some of the CGI is a little bit noticeable, but for the most part, like it's pretty clean. And the story like is phenomenal. X2 is a really good pull as well. Like that's definitely one that I was a big fan of. And that really, I think, people always say like Iron Man was the game changer or Dark Knight was the game changer, but before those two films was X2. Like X2 really made comic book films viable. Unfortunately, there's still a lot more bad than there were good back then, but that kind of paved the way. And I don't know if you know this, but the guy, one of the producers on X-Men 2 and even X-Men 1, was Kevin Feige. So the guy who runs the Marvel Cinematic Universe now, he was on those sets, and he was the guy being like, "Look, make Wolverine's hair bigger. Like it needs to be bigger. Like make it more like the comics." So the things that we love about those movies are definitely him.
Well, it's funny to see like a real linear relationship between those early Marvel films. Is X-Men Marvel, or are they owned by another?
So it's Marvel, but it was owned by Fox until the acquisition. So now they're working on getting the mutants in. So I think the first mutant we're going to probably see is Deadpool, because they've been talking about that for a couple of years. Deadpool 3 will be an MCU film, but there are a lot of rumors about this new Doctor Strange film. Like they're talking about we might see, like, I mean, I saw like a leaked credit list, and there's no way it's true because it was literally like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Ben Affleck as Daredevil, James McAvoy and Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier, like Nick Cage as Ghost Rider, like Tom Cruise as Iron Man, like because Tom Cruise was meant to play Iron Man like in the 90s. And I was like, look, there's no way this is true. Affleck has been very vocal about the fact he doesn't want to do superhero films anymore. But if even one of these shows up, like that's gonna be pretty great.
Yeah.
Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic was another one, like because he's been.
He'd be perfect. Am I thinking of someone else, or was Krasinski down to the short list of people to play Captain America?
He was down the short list as Captain America, but this was still Office John Krasinski. Like he was still like deep in the Office. A couple of years after the Office, once he started doing like Jack Ryan and stuff, you can see he's like buff as hell. Like now he could. Yeah. I mean, now he could play Captain America.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then, sorry, I'll just finish off with this last little iteration of me as a film buff, I guess, for lack of a better word, is this move I've had where I've really started to value films that are. This is coming from someone who's just said I'm a lifelong Marvel and DC fan, but films that are just not attached to existing IP. I'm afraid I've become a little cynical with the Hollywood machine, where it's like if it's not IP, we don't want to know about. And that's why I think that there are certain films why I'll always love Christopher Nolan, is because he makes comic book movies that aren't based on comic books. I know he makes Dark Knight, sorry, excuse that, but like. Like Tenet, Interstellar. These are all like original ideas. Whether you like them or don't like them, the value I have is that it's a really intelligent, large-scale event movie that's not just designed to get me into the cinema and then to keep me coming back. It's designed for me to take away and think about it and enjoy. And I think that I'm getting a lot of enjoyment out of some of the Marvel and the Star Wars shows. But when I talk about being a bit more of a cynical older man, it's more about, tuning into Disney Plus to see a new Marvel show. And you know that they're going to introduce a couple of new characters, which, don't get me wrong, is great. But then they're going to have a spin-off, and I know that there won't be a resolution in that season. It's just it's more about gaming your attention than actually giving you a real satisfying product. And so that's why. And don't get me wrong, I'm probably like the biggest hypocrite in the world, because I've watched a lot of those shows and I've loved them, but I just think there's also a place for some more independent films and just original content as well. And I think that that's sadly lacking at the moment in the film landscape.
Absolutely, and that's where I am as well. Like, because I'm in two camps. Because I'm a big indie film fan. I became an indie film fan in high school. Like, I always liked movies. I was just like you. I was a Video Easy kid. That was mine, and we were Friday nights. We'd go on a Friday night, and that way we could watch movies all weekend. So I was exactly the same as you. And then when I got into high school, I was like, I think I want to make movies. I think but it took a while. I didn't really know, because I was always into writing, and around like age 16, right before we had to pick electives for VC, I was like, I think I want to check out this film stuff. And I remember what it was. There were three things that made me want to get into movies, or like at least look at movies a little bit closer. The first two were trailers. There was the trailer for Sin City, and I'd never seen anything like it before. I'm like, what is this? This is amazing. And that was the first movie I ended up seeing by myself. And as you know, I'm a huge fan of going to movies by myself now. Like, when I used to work in retail, I'd have every Wednesday off. So I'd go, sweet, matinee, let's go 10 a.m., only one in the cinema, let's watch a movie, then go to the gym. Obviously, now I'm watching the movie still, not going to the gym so much, I've pulled out. But so Sin City was that first movie I ever saw by myself. But that trailer was so different and unusual. I was like, I don't know what this is. And then I started paying attention to directors. And the other one, of course, was the trailer for Kill Bill. Like, with that battle without honor or humanity, that soundtrack, the dun dun dun, seeing the way it was cut and everything, I was like, I don't know what this is. And I didn't know that. I knew the name Quentin Tarantino because like everyone was always talking about it, but I didn't know anything about it. And I remember I wanted to see that movie so bad, and I was like, well, it's R and I'm 15, so I won't be able to see it for 3 years. And then I got a job at a video store and I snuck a copy and watched it at like age 16. It was the best. So those two were the first things that got me interested in film. And so I went and I was studying film in high school. And then a friend of mine was like, you should watch this movie. Like, you're into comedy, you like weird things, you'll like this. And it was this movie called Clerks. And I've blown it up on my Instagram. I talk about it's my favorite movie of all time. And it changed my life, because here's this film, it's black and white. And I thought my TV was broken, or like the disc was broken, because I didn't know that, like, because it was the case was in color, so I didn't know it was a black and white film. And it's got the filthiest language I've ever heard in my life. I wasn't watching a lot of films with swearing at that time, because I grew up in a very strict house. We touched on that in the episode with my dad. But I'd never heard these jokes before, and like these kids sounded like a version of me, like a little bit bluer than me, but like they talked like me and my friends, because they just talked about movies the whole time. And I was like, this is really cool. Like, what is this? Like, who is this guy? And then I went down the rabbit hole and just started watching all of his films. And my favorite part of that story is that the girl who introduced me to the movie Clerks is a girl named Amy. Now, if you don't watch Kevin Smith films, that means nothing. But if you do, he has a movie called Chasing Amy, and he tells a story about a girl named Amy in all of his like Q&As. So I was like, that's kind of cool. But and that was my intro to indie film. And then I discovered people like Soderbergh, Larry Clark, who did Kids, which is a really dark, messed up movie. I eventually did go down the rabbit hole with Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez and stuff like that. So there's a very long way of me saying I agree with you. There's a place for both. Like, I'm a big fan of those indie original films as well. That being said, last year or the year before, I watched about 380 films because I had a baby girl. I still do, but she was just born, and I had to stay up till 3 a.m. to watch her. So I just had all this killer time. At one point, I did watch like an indie film. I was like, now I'm getting too old for this. This is too experimental. This is too out there. So I definitely.
I'd love to know what it was. What was the threshold where it's like the great James Chalmers is like, no thanks.
I think it was called Beyond the Black Rainbow. I could be wrong. And it's directed by the guy who directed Mandy, which is a Nick Cage film. If you've never seen Mandy, it's great. It's this psychedelic, like sci-fi cult film about this guy whose girlfriend gets abducted by this weird sex cult, and he ends up fighting like demons with chainsaws, and it's great. Like Nick Cage is doing more interesting stuff in the last couple of years than his entire career. So I was like, oh well, I liked Mandy. That was really weird and cool. I watched Beyond the Black Rainbow, and it was just like atmospheric music for an hour and a half with flickering images and not really much of a story. I was like, this. And like maybe it's because it was like 2 a.m. and I had a baby, but I was just like, oh, I might be done with these kind of movies.
Yeah, I think any sort of sleep deprivation doesn't lend itself to those. I remember one evening trying to. I think it wasn't a scenario where I was up till super late, but I think I just made the decision to watch a film quite late, and it turned out to be Neon Demon, a Nicholas Winding Refn, or Refn, film, and my word, I didn't sleep particularly well that night. Quite a bit of imagery and cannibalism in that one.
So I have this new philosophy, and obviously like the show's called I Was a Teenage Film Snob, and the show's not really about that, but I am trying to be a little bit more open-minded. And my thing now is like, I'm not going to bad talk a film. If I don't like it, like that's fine. I'll try and find something good in it. Neon Demon is just a film I didn't like. And it's not a bad film, but just for me, there's nothing about it that I connected with. I was just like, well, no, okay. Well, I watched it. Like it just didn't really engage me. And like it was funny because everyone was going nuts about it. Like obviously not the general populace where it was like, this is as big as Iron Man. But like all at the film festivals and stuff, were like, oh, this film, what an artful delight. I remember watching it, I'm like, oh, I mean, look, there's some interesting stuff in it. But I don't know whether like Elle Fanning was just really unenthusiastic or whether that was the decision. They were like, this is what the performance is. But she's like, man, I'm just not engaging.
I think, and not to just make this a podcast about the Neon Demon, I think that, I mean, we can if you'd like to. I think it was designed to be shot in a deadpan way. I think it's a really flat affect in that film. No one seems to be doing much. But I will say one thing I really love about his films is there's some shots that he's so unique, and this, I think the way he films the certain scenes almost like they're portraits where it's almost like he's scanning along a really long portrait, and it's not all encompassed in the frame. And if anyone's, and this is a deep cut, but if anyone's seen the show he directed, Too Old to Die Young, which had Miles Teller in it, there's some unbelievable shots in that of just it's really dark and grim. It's not a lighthearted watch at all, but I think he's a really talented dude, but you've got to be in the right headspace, I think.
Yeah, he definitely makes some really interesting films. And like, yeah, look, my complaints about the movie were not the technical side of thing at all. Like it's shot, stunning. Like the use of color and imagery and lighting is really cool, and music as well. It was just, and look, maybe I wasn't in the right mood to watch it either. Because I've definitely like, maybe maybe I owe this film another watch. I'll give it a watch in a few years. But like that deadpan style, like when you talk about that, I think the movie's like Thoroughbreds. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it came out a few years ago with Anya Taylor-Joy, who's this huge star now. But when this movie came out, she wasn't really. Like she'd just done Split, which kind of put her on the scene. But now she's everywhere. She was in Emma, and she was in Last Night in Soho, and all these other movies. It was her and I can't remember what the other girl's name was. I'm going to look it up, which is very typical Pass the Remote behavior, where we're like, let me look it up while we're talking. Olivia Cooke.
Pass the Remote behavior would have been us being on the same wavelength. So like I would have been on IMDb. Like an overriding memory of our previous podcast is just always phones on the table. Just you might be talking about a movie and I'm just looking it up while you're talking about it.
I've got it here. Like I was looking up. Olivia Cooke was the other actress. She was in Ready Player One. So Thoroughbreds was very much that. It was very deadpan. And it's about two girls who conspire to kill one of the girls' stepdads or whatever. Wonderful movie. Like really cool and really engaging. That I guess is the concept was very different to Neon Demon, but it was that whole like deadpan, like we're unenthusiastic, we're kind of apathetic, that kind of style. And for me, it's just the film that maybe captured that approach a little bit better. But Neon Demon, I'll give another go. Every film gets a second chance. Nice one, cool. But we'll talk a little. We got a topic this week, and I remember I messaged you, and we've already used his name once. Where I was like, we should do top 5 Nolan films. Because I know you're a huge Nolan fan, and I was like, we can call the episode "Nick Loves Nolan." The alliteration will be great, and also like it'll give me some banter. And you didn't set me up. You're like, why don't we do Scorsese instead? And never wanted to back down from a challenge. I'm like, done, let's do Scorsese. And then I stopped. I'm like, how many Scorsese films have I watched? And like, that's going to sound alarming for a show called I Was a Teenage Film Snob. But I've seen a lot of Scorsese films, but he's just not one that I go back to a lot. And it's not a criticism of his film. It's just more like Scorsese makes long films. He makes 3-hour films that are very dramatic and epic. And like sometimes you're just on the mood for. You just want like a quick burn, like get me in and out in 90 minutes, let me have a laugh, that sort of thing. So whilst I do love and respect him as a filmmaker, he's not. I wasn't sure if I had a top 5. I've got a top 5.
I think maybe you're more suited to Jackass than Scorsese.
Look, I mean, I've seen them. I haven't seen the new one yet, obviously, but I've seen those films, and there's some entertainment.
I say that as if I'm a film snob. I'm a simple man, and seeing a guy get whacked with a big hand or something like that, that's never not going to be funny.
That makes me think of, I don't know if you ever saw it, but they did that spin-off film, or they did like a narrative film, because normally all this stuff is stunts, but they did that film Bad Grandpa. I don't know if you ever watched it.
I didn't, no.
And it's not every film gets a second chance. It's not the most like it's not the cleverest film, Like it was written by Spike Jonze, who wrote Her, but like it's obviously like kind of a somewhat narrative tale based on stunts and stuff like that. But throughout the entire film, Johnny Knoxville playing the grandpa is like, I'll never go fishing again because that one time, and they keep teasing it over and over again, and they never show it. And you're like, what is this fishing story? And then finally, like the punchline at the end of the movie is like they show you the flashback, and he goes fishing. And he reels in this giant, like, fake inflatable fish. It's got like a massive dildo on it, and it's just like attacking him in the face. And like, it was cracking me up. Like it was just so funny because I just wasn't expecting it. I was in tears. So like,
but I feel like those moments are really great levelers because particularly if you identify as someone who's really into films, as we both do, we both love talking about them. Sometimes you need something that, like a moment like that, to be like, yeah, I am just also one of the people, like simple things, simple pleasures in life.
Absolutely. And that was my goal last year during lockdown. So I'm going to visit the films that I said I wouldn't watch. And so like I started with, I'm going to start with some post 2003 Adam Sandler. Because I loved Adam Sandler as a kid and as a teenager, like Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, like Water Boilers movies cracked me up. And then, like, around the time, I think the last film that I really enjoyed was Mr. Deeds. And then after that, I kind of lost interest because I just kind of outgrown it a little bit. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to give this Pixels movie a go because one of my good friends loves Adam Sandler and Kevin James and stuff. It's about video games. That's kind of a cool idea. It's got a good cast. I watched it, and look, it ain't winning any awards. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be like on anyone's top, best films of all time list. But like, it's a harmless family comedy, like just a bit silly. I was like, you know what? That's pretty entertaining. Like, that's good stuff in. I watched it. I did a double feature, that and Uncut Gems, and boy, what a trip that was.
Oh man, Uncut Gems. I don't think I've ever been more anxious in my life than when that film is just like edited and scored like a nightmare. Like it is like a nightmare.
I think the only time I was more anxious or equally anxious was watching the mountain fight the viper in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so we're going to do top 5 Scorsese films. And I imagine you'll have a couple of honorable mentions as well. So what we used to do on Pass the Remote, so just so people know, take it in turns. We'll go from 5 to 1, do a little bit of a back and forth on it, talk about the movies, and then we'll throw in the ones that didn't quite make the list, but we do enjoy quite a bit. And I imagine it'll generate some conversation.
That's the idea.
It'd be pretty bad podcast if there's no talking.
Yeah, I think I'm just here to list them and then leave. So
just put it up on the camera. I'm done.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to finish with our honorables, or
we'll do honorables last. And the reason why, because people are like, why would you save those to last? We did this in Pass the Remote because there were 3 of us, and I'd list all my honorable mentions, and Tina would be like, "Here's list 10 of my movies." Like so. Well, okay. I'm going to cop it. I'm making fun of her so much on this show. If she listens to it, she'll be like, "Can I have a word, please? Because you've been very mean about me on your show." I'll let you start. Top number 5, Scorsese film.
Number 5, as a Marty head, I'm going to go back to his. Look, none of mine are, and I'll say right off the bat, are from his. I'm sure what a lot of fellow Marty heads would say are his seminal period of those 70s, like your Mean Streets or Taxi Driver, those early Robert De Niro ones. So I'll put that right off the bat. And I think this is the oldest film on the list, actually. At number 5 is Color of Money.
Okay.
So this was made in the late 80s, starring the legend Tom Cruise, still as a young man, and also an older legend in Paul Newman. And I mean, I won't bore you and go through the plot, but essentially they're pool hustlers, and they're traveling around the Midwest on their way to a big pool tournament, and they sort of just go to these regional pool halls and hustle people out of their money. And I think that, first of all, I would say that you must classify it as a sports movie. You wouldn't think so as a pool movie. But I think that one thing I really, really love about Scorsese's films and the way he shoots them is that this is it's not a concept or a film idea that's going to really knock anyone's socks off. It had a few things going for it. Obviously, Paul Newman is like a legend of Hollywood. Tom Cruise was in that sweet spot of like Top Gun, Cocktail, this. Like, he was a comet, like absolutely rising star.
Mm.
And you've got scenes like it might just be a bit of a humdrum movie idea, but you've also got Scorsese being like, yeah, but like it's also me. And there's a one take sequence where he's revolving the camera around a pool table while Tom Cruise is smoking some regional guy in pool and dancing to Werewolves of London. I mean, it's a moment of genius. I would recommend just everyone get on YouTube and just look up Color of Money, Werewolves of London. I'm sure it's on the internet somewhere.
They parody it in Community.
Oh, did they really? Okay, well, there you go. I did not know that.
And I didn't realize it was a reference because I haven't seen Color of Money. So, and I imagine there'll be a few movies on your list I haven't seen. Again, I haven't done a deep dive on Scorsese, so like there'll be some shock, I'm sure. But there's an episode where one of the guys in Community wants to join the billiards class, and the kind of the crescendo of the episode, the final like moments of the episode is them having a game to Werewolves of London. So it's obviously a reference to that.
There you go. Yep. Yeah, there we go. And I think the ending is really elevates that film above what it probably has any right to do, which, I mean, again, I won't go through the plot, but Paul Newman is a bit of a lost soul throughout it. He's sort of lost his passion for pool, and his passion is just for making money. And then the final shot of the movie is him just like, you got to understand how the movie's shot, but he thwacks the pool, the white ball, I don't know pool terminology, and it smashes into him, and he goes, I'm back, and then just cuts.
Nice.
And so it's a real Scorsese finish. And while it's not a film I could ever be like, oh, that's in my top 10 films, I just think if you want to go back and experience the absolute tour de force of Tom Cruise as he was taking over the world, would really recommend.
Nice one. It's definitely one that, like, it's obviously one of those titles I've heard a lot of and just haven't got around to. But whenever I get a Nick Owen stamp of approval, I generally chuck that on the list. So it definitely will go on there. My number 5 is also probably not one that people think of too much. And I'm with you. So there are a couple from his early period that aren't on my list, but they are some of them are in my honorable mentions. I've gone with the King of Comedy. So I don't know if you've ever seen this one. So it's one of his Robert De Niro ones. It's one of the biggest inspirations for Joker, that movie that came out a few years ago with Joaquin Phoenix. That movie was basically inspired by 2 Scorsese films, one being Taxi Driver, the other one being King of Comedy. And basically Robert De Niro plays this wannabe stand-up comedian, Rupert Pupkin, and he's just terrible. Like, he really thinks he's going to be like the best comedian ever. He adores the character played by Jerry Lewis, very much like in Joker, how he idolized the Robert De Niro character. It's the same kind of thing. And the film kind of like builds and builds, and he kind of becomes a bit of a stalker, and he's just trying to get on the show. He just wants to prove himself. If he can get on the show, like, everyone will see how funny he is. And him and his girlfriend end up taking Jerry Lewis hostage and like trying to force him to get him on the show. It's like, it sounds funny. It's really dark and weird. Like, it's not a typical Scorsese film. It's not violent. It's not very cursy. It's actually like, it's very kind of tame for Scorsese. but the themes are very unusual. Like it's very dark and like very twisted, and it's not. There are funny moments, but it's not a comedy. Like it's kind of this weird, torturous exploration of a guy who has a dream and doesn't realize, like, hey, not all dreams come true. Like maybe you should just try something else.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but yeah,
No,
look,
right.
I it's actually a real blind spot in my Scorsese back catalogue here because, like you, I think I had read when the Joker came out that it was sort of quite heavily influenced by that film, and I thought, oh, what's this film like? I have not seen this, and I don't know if it was a wrong time, wrong headspace, but I gave it a crack and watched it, and I just could not engage with it. I don't know. I think maybe it's just a bit too experimental. A bit, the themes are a bit out there, and it didn't grasp me. So I don't know if I even got through it, to be honest with you. But having it so high in your list at 5, I might have to rethink that.
I think it's very deliberately disengaging. Like you're not supposed to like him. Like it's even in most of Scorsese's films, even though most of his characters are bad people, you kind of want to root for them. And in this, you don't. He's just annoying. You're like, oh, like, come on. Like, I'd rather look at any other character in this movie than you. And I think that's why I liked it. Because also, like, you don't really see De Niro play a loser. Like, he really doesn't. Even when he was like, I mean, I never watched Grudge Match, but like, even when he was like an old retired boxer and stuff, even when he's like in these like weird comedies and stuff, he's always presented in a very respectful, like he's the power, he's in charge, he's the guy. And so that's why I liked it so much, because it's just interesting to see De Niro play a guy who's not in charge, who has no control, who is a bit of a loser and stuff. And I think it's a really good chance to see him do something different, because even in his comedies and stuff, for the most part, he's kind of doing the same thing, and that's not a criticism of his acting. It's just kind of he got a bit typecast, I think, especially after Godfather Part 2. So I really like that it's such an interesting version of De Niro, and Jerry Lewis is fantastic as well. Obviously, like really good in it. But yeah, King of Comedy. I cannot recommend it enough. It's a great film.
Oh, excellent! What a strong start.
What do you got for 4?
Number 4. Number 4 is the vehicle that really launched my serious idolization of Leonardo DiCaprio, and that's The Aviator. Mm-hmm. Came out in the early 2000s, and it's a biography or a biopic of Howard Hughes.
Yep.
And I really think that bloody Jamie Foxx and Ray stole a lot of limelight. That was the same year that Ray came out, and and Jamie Foxx won the Oscar, I think, that year. But I really think that that Leonardo DiCaprio's performance as Howard Hughes was superior. And this film's not actually in there for any cinematic flourishes or any shots that are like, oh, that's signature Scorsese. It's purely in there because of the performance that he pulled out of Leo. And in fact, I think that you'd also had Cate Blanchett in there, and I think she did win an Academy Award for that film. And I also think that John C. Reilly was probably could have won the best supporting actor as well. I think there's 3 really amazing performances in there.
John C. Reilly is such an underrated actor. Like people only so many people only really attribute him to like Step Brothers or like those kind of comedies, and he's great in them. But by the way, like he's so funny, but like he's such a great dramatic actor. Like some of the stuff he does, like.
Well, that's such a good point. I mean, my exposure to him was in things like Step Brothers, Talladega Nights.
Yeah.
And I think that the mark of how good of an actor he is he's actually a classically trained character actor who is funny just because he can act comedy. I don't think he's not in the same category of funny as like your I don't know, like your Jim Carreys, those kind of people who are just naturally hilarious people. I think he's just that good of an actor that he can perform the scenes in such a funny way. So, big fan of John C. Reilly as well. But yeah, again, so I mean, there's not too much more I can say on The Aviator. I think it's in there purely for it's a great story and great performances as well.
And that's another one. Like again, like I'm 0 for 2. Like still haven't seen The Aviator, and it's just one of those ones where like it's a 3-hour runtime. I'm like, I need to find 3 hours to watch this. Like, do you know what I mean?
I wonder if the difference in, if it's something I like, I'm all out. I'm a maximalist. Like, give me as much of that. If I'm engaged in a movie and I'm really enjoying it, then let it be 3.5 hours.
Of course, absolutely. And, I say that, and I was like, you know what? During lockdown, when you had a baby, not to 3M, you did watch Infinity War and Endgame back to back. So, like, the argument does fall apart. And now I'm doing this thing where I've kind of been doing this thing on Instagram where every night is movie night. So every night, doesn't matter like what time it is, I'll chuck something on. If I don't finish it, that's cool. But I want to like be exposed to more stuff. I'm trying to get through my collection of movies that I haven't watched yet. So I've got a bunch because I just buy so much. I was like, I should really watch everything before I start rewatching stuff this year. So I'm about halfway through it. I had about 60 movies I needed to watch, and I'm about almost 30 movies into those 60 that I haven't watched yet. So
it's pretty solid. Yeah. Though.
And then I can move to Netflix and stuff. But I'm like, the stuff I've paid for, I've got to watch. But Aviator's also been on my list forever. So good to hear a resounding review for that one. That's excellent. My number 4 probably isn't that much of a surprise. And my beyond King of Comedy, my list is going to be pretty vanilla. I'll be honest, like it's stuff that people are going to expect. But it's got to be Casino. Casino's great. Like it's just. It's such a typical mob film. Like it's exactly what you expect from Scorsese. You got De Niro playing the bad guy, you got Pesci playing the worst guy, and you've got Sharon Stone playing the surprisingly bad girl that you weren't expected to be bad. It hits all those tropes, it hits all those marks you expect for him, but it's still great. Like it's really entertaining. I could watch like late 80s, early 90s De Niro and Pesci go back and forth nonstop. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're just so entertaining together. And there's that scene, obviously. Go on.
No, sorry, you keep going. No, you go.
I'd say there's that scene where the famous scene where they take the cheater, the guy counting cards out the back, and they like torturing him and stuff. And like again, it's been parodied to death, but it's just a great film. It's just a really great film, and I don't really have anything to say about it. Do you know what I mean? Like I can't be like, and here's the reasons why.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I want from Martin Scorsese films. Exactly what I expect, and it just delivers on all categories. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's a mark of just how consistent he was in that genre, that he had his guys, he had his team. It's like Avengers Assemble kind of thing. And like Robert De Niro just flies in and Joe Pesci. But I think as well, he was able to just capture this weird moment where with those and a couple of other films that I'm sure will pop up on our list. But, Robert De Niro was having this renaissance from, being biggest thing in the world through the 70s and 80s and then coming back in the 90s in these kind of films. And then, this strange period where Joe Pesci was one of the most important people acting in films. He was in Goodfellas, Home Alone, Casino.
And what a contrast from Goodfellas to Home Alone.
I know. Yeah. So, no, great film. Not on my list, but no spoilers there, but absolutely fantastic film.
Yeah, absolutely. Hit me with number 3.
Number 3 is possibly the most debauched, hedonistic 3 hours I've ever spent watching a movie.
I think we might have the same movie as number 3. We should say it. I'll count.
Wolf of Wall Street.
You ruined it for me. That's okay. Yes, Wolf of Wall Street is my number 3 as well.
It is. I think it works on so many levels, this film. It's shot beautifully. Obviously, like great performances from Leonardo DiCaprio. The introduction of Margot Robbie to the world, I think, can't be understated. I'd imagine there was quite a few young men Googling her after that film. And it works on you can go and just sit back and watch these animals debase themselves with money and drugs and alcohol. But I also like that you can tell that they've just it's not a judgment on those people. It's just like, yep, there's shit people who exist and they've built this hell for themselves. And you can just see that they're all awful people. None of them look particularly happy. And I think it's a really clever film. And I think shout out to it because it's probably got, I think, the most F words of all time. I think there's just one every a couple of seconds in that film as well.
It's great. And you're right, it is debauched. I remember I watched it I remember, and I can talk about this freely now because I don't work there anymore. But I remember we were working together in a storeroom loading boxes and stuff, and I was feeling pretty unwell, and we were meant to go to the movies that night, and I'd gone home sick. As I'm leaving, like, we're still going to the movies tonight, right? I'm like, of course we are. Like, I'll just get through this. And I came home and I watched Wolf of Wall Street, like, and then I slept, and then we went and saw Sin City 2. Um, and then I watched Wolf of Wall Street later with Tina a little while later, and she was like, man, she goes, yeah, I don't know if I can look at a man for a while. Like, it's pretty like it's pretty full on,
Yeah.
but it's arguably got the best soundtrack of any Scorsese film. Like, the music just works on every level. Every song is perfectly picked. Um, Margot Robbie obviously is genius in, and Leo you can't take away from. It's not his best performance. Like, he won the. Did he didn't win the award? Did he win the award for Wolf of Wall Street, or was it for?
Nah, it was Revenant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, phew, in retrospect.
Yeah. But I feel like I remember people saying, like, this is just like to make up for Aviator and Catch Me If You Can and stuff like that, because he'd put in so many good performances before. But he's great in it. And then you've got, like, obviously Jonah Hill is fantastic in it. John Bernthal, the Punisher, plays the muscle guy.
Yeah.
The mum from How I Met Your Mother, Christian Milioti, plays his first wife. Like,
Yes, his first wife. Yep.
it's a solid flick. And you're right. And when you were talking about, like, runtimes before, this is a film that flies by. It's very, very entertaining, even if it is a bit dark and, grimy. And they throw, a little person against a target at one point, and
Yeah. And they're unashamedly scumbags, and I like that it makes no judgment on that. There's no. I mean, I suppose you would say that he gets his comeuppance because it's a true story based on. Truest story based on Jordan Belfort, who did end up going to prison, but it kind of just presents these people, and you can take it for what you want. You can just enjoy the fact that there's just insanely debauched animals doing this kind of stuff, or you can look at it a little bit deeper. And I think, like any true favorite film of mine, I know that it's in that category because it provides me with certain things that stick with me my whole life. And this is a bit of a deep cut reference, but there's a bit when Leo and Margot Robbie are arguing in their bedroom, and she says they're arguing about something, and she goes, "Oh, then I had to I had to interact with the golf course people or something like that." And Leo's like, "Oh, you had to interact with the golf course people. What a Greek tragedy." So now I use Greek tragedy fairly often in my life, and if something is ever a struggle, I very much use that gif of Leonardo DiCaprio like crawling and trying to get into his Ferrari or Lamborghini or whatever it is. That's come in very handy over the years as well.
It's a great flick, and I know, I just can imagine people listening to this, especially if they are big Scorsese fans, to be like, really, like, Wolf of Wall Street's on there, because it seems to be a thing about a lot of Scorsese guys, but they're just like, Wolf of Wall Street, like, that's when Scorsese dipped, and it's like, no, like, I get it. It's not a gangster film. Like, I get it. It's a bit more lighthearted. But I don't know. Like, there's something about it. It's very rewatchable as well. You can't help but just want to go in for a second round and check it out again. I was even one of them the first time I watched it. I'm like, yeah, it was all right, but I don't know what everyone's talking about. But now I only think about it and be like, yeah, I do want to see that again.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think you tune in and you're just like, time starts flying by. It's just very well paced, that film.
Nice one. Well, okay. Well, that was both of our number 3. Good timing. What do you got for number 2?
All right, we should shoot straight to number 2. This was a very tough decision because I feel like Scorsese has, for most people, I think would have a universally accepted number 1 film. But for me, my number 2 is Goodfellas.
It's my number 2, which makes me think that which makes me think our number 1's the same as well. We'll save it. We'll save it.
All right. Yeah, but don't say yours because I've got a good bit for that.
I had a bit in mind as well, so I think it is the same film. Okay, tell me about
Goodfellas. Okay. Anyway, that's to come. Goodfellas. What else can you say about? I think that a lot of people would say Godfather is, and I think they are slightly different films, but Godfather is the pinnacle of like mob movie, mafia kind of thing. But for me, like I just still remember the first time watching it, and it starts. They're in that car. De Niro, Pesci, and Ray Liotta are in that car. Red light shining on their face. They park. Pesci stabs the guy in the boot, and then some trombone comes in, and bang, the voiceover starts. Ray Liotta's voiceover starts. I've never been more into a film in the first 3 or 4 minutes than I have in that, and I think it's flawless from there. I think that like every person in that probably could have won Best Actor.
Yeah, it's so good. And this is another one. This actually, we were talking about suspense before with Uncut Gems, but the moment when they realize that like people are coming after them, like you just don't know what's going to happen and when. Like there's the woman, the guy following her down the corridor. She's going to look at the coats or whatever, and then they use Layla, like that exit from Layla, and they open up the meat truck, and it's and funny how like it's so iconic. There's so many great moments in it. Like this is like primo Pesci, and again, like I like Pesci in pretty much everything. There's one film recently he was in that I didn't like so much, but had less to do with him and more about the fact that they were far too old to be in that movie, which is also a Scorsese film, funnily enough. But it's just him at his prime. Like, it's him at his best. Like, it's so good. And Ray Liotta, like, he didn't really show up in any other Scorsese films as far as I can remember, but I could be wrong there. But even him, like, you go in there and he's less of a household name, I would say, than those two. Like, everyone knew De Niro and Pesci. Liotta, not so much, but he holds his own against them so well.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point. And, I'm sure he would have wanted to have had probably some more hits. And I'm sure he's been working steadily. I couldn't tell you much of what he's been in. You see him pop up in the odd thing here and there, but I mean, if that's what you're going to be remembered for, like, fine by me. I think it's one of the great performances to go head to head against De Niro and Pesci in that kind of form. As you mentioned it before, the what's so funny kind of scene. Mm-hmm. Like, I've seen that film probably, like, I don't know, too many times to count, and I still get uncomfortable watching that. It's just so uncomfortable to watch, and I think that's a mark of just how everyone was just firing on all cylinders in that film.
And there's also... sorry, go on. I interrupted. Go.
No, and I was just going to say, and I love the transition from who didn't want to... If you cut the first 45 minutes, who didn't want to be, like, affiliated with just some harmless kind of, like, local mafia where it just is like a big old family kind of thing. And then the transition into, when he gets to know Jimmy, and they start pulling off bigger heists, and then the paranoia sets in, and then the all-out coke come down of the last 30 minutes is just so uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
It's brilliantly paced, that film as well.
And I think, and I don't know which one I watched first. It was either Goodfellas or Sopranos. I can't remember what it was. But whichever one that I watched first, it was the first time I'd seen, like, the hero or the protagonist, like, be a real scumbag and also, like, have an affair. Like, because the whole time, like, he'll never cheat on her. Like, he loves her. And then, like, when he does, they start hooking up with other girls. And I was like, oh, but I liked you. Like, you were doing bad things, but I liked you. And now it's really hard for me to like you. And then I had that same feeling with Tony Soprano as well. Because, like, he loves his wife. Oh, like, why? Like,
yeah.
Believe me, like, having an affair is the least offensive thing they do in those movies. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're killing people, they're ripping people off. But even still, it's like, well, that was the last thing you had. And now it's really hard for me to like you. And there's a Sopranos connection in that as well, because Christopher from Sopranos is the bartender or whatever, and Pesci is none too kind to him throughout the film.
That's right. Yeah. He does fill him full of holes, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, the first one, he just shoots him in the toe or whatever, and then he finishes the job. It's poor Christopher.
And also, I want to give a shout out to, I can't think of too many names, but shout out to that scene that goes through the bar and introduces all the different characters, and it's just sort of like Jimmy Roast Beef and those kind of real Italian name. It's a minute of absolute genius filmmaking.
There's a reason why it's on people's list, and, like, most people, like, kind of put it as their top Scorsese film, or, like, I've seen people like, it's my number one favorite film. Like, it's so entertaining and, like, so well made. Like, but there is a Scorsese film for me that does top it, and I do really think we have the same one. But I'll let you do your bit.
All right. Well, I've just got one question for you, James. Are you a co-op?
Yes, I was going to do my worst Bostonian accent as well. It's got to be Departed.
Yeah, Departed is obviously unanimously our number one film, and I say that it's now 15 years old approximately, and I still think it holds up to anything that's come out since. You've got, and I think there's a few people who really needed this film to, you know, when I look back on it, I think Leonardo DiCaprio, this really cemented the transition from that like teen heartthrob. I think he needed this to go on and do some of the films he's done subsequently. Take him seriously as a bit more of a action leading man, I guess you might say. And I also think this also, the same point you could be said about Scorsese, where he was kind of he had his lane, and some of those films are in our top 5 list. So I'm not saying at all that he was getting stale or stagnant, but this film and the fact that it was so good and it was such a big hit opens up the door for him to just start smashing them out of the park in the next 15 years and you're doing your Wolf of Wall Street and The Irishman and those kinds of films as well.
Yeah, and I remember like, and I was always like an Oscars kid. Like I remember wanting to tune into the Oscars from maybe the age like 10. Like I hadn't seen most of the films on there, but I just was really interested in it. I'm like, oh, I just want to see this. And I remember like probably around like kind of 12, 13 is when I started taking interest in film a bit more seriously. And then obviously I said before how it went. And I remember like, I think The Departed was the first film in a few years where I'm like, oh, yeah, good. Like that one deserved to win, because I'd started watching the Oscars films at that point. I was like, it's been a while since like the winner actually probably deserved to win, and it really did. Like I'd throw a couple other names in there who needed that film, like Jack Nicholson. Like he'd been doing some, he'd kind of, he hasn't been doing much lately. Obviously, he's been quite ill and stuff, but he hadn't done much in a while. That was kind of really engaging, and like to see, it might be the scariest Nicholson's ever been, and he was in The Shining. Like he's really ruthless, intimidating. To see Matt Damon and Mark Wahlberg at a time where I couldn't tell the difference between them made it a very confusing film, and made the intrigue all that more.
Yeah. I also think there's a great film to be made where DiCaprio and Matt Damon swap roles. I would just love to see that version of the film as well. I think they both could have played both parts pretty well.
It's. I mean, I've thrown this word around, but it's solid. Like it's just, I can't fault it. It's 2.5 hours. It goes by really quickly. It's a really good cop film, but it's also a really good gangster film while being different to what he's done before. Obviously, really popularized Dropkick Murphys with that song, but like I can't imagine that film without that song. And then
I also.
Sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was also going to say it also. I mean, now we've been living with this film for 15 years. You know what's coming towards the end of it, but it can't be understated how fucking shocking that was. I feel like I can probably spoil a 15-year-old film, but it seems like it's going in a certain way, and then Leonardo DiCaprio, who is our titular hero, dies. He gets just shot in the head, and it's shocking. Like you do not see it coming. And it completely changes the film. And I still can remember the first time I saw that. And you're just like, oh, sorry, is that real? Did that actually happen?
And that might be one of the first films I saw where that happened. Like I was, so, I hadn't been watching a lot. I hadn't really kind of gone out of my comfort zone. I'd been watching the stuff that I'd watch at home with the family and stuff. And The Departed was not the kind of thing that I would watch with my parents. Although, years on, I'm sure both my parents would say they've seen it and loved it. So I didn't really see that kind of twist very often. Like you don't really that's kind of, it's more popular now. You'll see that happen a little bit more, because people are like, I want to reject what is normal in cinema. So more people will try that ending. Even as recent as spoilers, Avengers Endgame, they're like, you know what? We're done with Iron Man. Let's get rid of him. I mean, he had 10 years, so it wasn't like it was like that surprising, but it was, that sort of thing happened. That was the first time maybe I'd seen it, and that's not to say it hadn't happened before. It's the first time I saw it. And then rewatching it later, you see things like the X's. Like if there's an X, if a character's under an X, like they're gone. Like just And that's the first time I'd really seen that kind of detail like thrown into a movie. I'm like, wow, what a cool little thing. Like they're showing you the movie, they're telling you what's going to happen, but you have to be paying attention to pick up on it.
Yes, yeah. It's a really good point because I think there's a cross taped on the lift behind him, and there's crosses in the carpet, I think, as well. Right at the end. It's a really good point.
And there's another film I've talked about with you in the past that I really loved and does a very similar thing. This movie came out in 2019 called Midsummer. It's one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years. It's brilliant. And it wasn't the first time I watched it, but the second time I watched it, there's literally a scene where they walk past a tapestry. And if you look at the tapestry, it gives you the entire plot of the film. Like it shows you everything that's going to happen in the next 3 hours. But like it's like one of those blink and you miss, or if you're not paying attention and pick up on it. And it's that attention to detail in filmmaking. I'm just like, man, like how ballsy do you have to be like, I'm going to tell you everything's going to happen, but I'm going to spoil the film for you, and you're not even going to realize it. Like,
yeah.
I love The Departed. It's a perfect movie.
I do think it's a perfect movie. It's consistently in my top 10. Depending on the day, the top 5. It's a very malleable concept.
Yeah, I was talking about that with my dad when he was on. He's actually going to be on the next episode of the show, but I recorded with him previously. And we were talking about his, and he's like, before the show was asking me what my top 5 was. I was like, it changes. Like, and I think like that's part of being a film fan. Like, I think if you only like the same 5 films and never change the ranking, like you're probably not watching enough movies, to be honest.
No, that's true. And I think that like the human experience is so diverse. How can the same 5 movies fulfill every mood,
Yeah, like recently, I was kind of going over it, and I haven't talked about it on this show, and I'll talk about it at some point, but I've done it to death on every podcast I've ever hosted. So I'm like, I'll leave my list for a while. But for the first time in almost 30 years, Blues Brothers dropped out of the top 5. And I love that movie, but I rewatched it a couple of years ago. I was like, I do like it, and there's a lot to enjoy about it, but it's just not as relevant to me anymore. Like it, it had a really special place in my heart when I was a kid, but now I just don't watch it as regularly. Like as an adult, it means different things to me. So I'm going to put it aside. Like I still love it. It's still like one of my favorite movies of all time, but it's just out of the top 5 for the moment. But it might bounce back. It was So the list is constantly
it's always sitting there if I ever just want to see 800 police cars just like get smashed.
Like there'll probably be a time when Clerks falls out of my top 5. It's been in my top 5 for the last 15 years, and it'll probably stick around. But there'll probably be a point where I'm like, you know what, I can't relate to being disenfranchised and working in retail, So like there may be a time when it comes off. But I watched it at the end of last year, and it still holds a very special place in my heart. So it's still there for now, but we'll see. Departed, just so good.
yeah.
I was shocked that our list was so close.
I'm really shocked. For some reason, I had you down as someone who didn't enjoy Goodfella. I don't know why. I don't know if we'd ever talked about it before, but that was the one that I thought maybe wouldn't appear on yours, which might be a surprise, but completely wrong about that, obviously.
I was like, I know we'll both have Wolf of Wall Street, and I know we'll both have Departed. I didn't think our top 3 would be identical. That really surprised me. Because I thought you would have. I didn't know what to expect. I thought maybe like Shutter Island was going to be on your list, because I still haven't seen Shutter Island, but I remember you talking about that film a lot, and I was like, that'll probably be on his list, which would be good because I still haven't seen it. It'd be good to hear him talk about it. So that was the big surprise to me that wasn't on your list.
Which leads me into my honorable mentions.
Go for it. Shutter Island.
Sorry, before I go into them, I did cut you off there for the sake of comedy. So, did you have something else you wanted to say?
You're a real king of comedy, my friend. No, that was it. I really am, because and I've said this before, and like in the show we used to do, like our lists rarely ever matched up, and that's not because we had such differing tastes. We've just both seen so many things, and I was like, even with Scorsese, there's so many movies. There's no way we'll only get a couple. Top 3 to match, I think, is a testament not only to how much we are alike, but also how strong a filmmaker he is to like have that same top 3 list.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. Really good point.
Right, let's hear a couple of your honorable. I can't even say words. Honorable mentions.
So
do you want to go one at a time, or do you want to just do them all in one hit, or?
Look, I'll just reel them off in one hit. I tried to, could have fit a lot in here, but I tried to keep it. So I didn't have it in my top 5, but of your films was Casino. I feel like it's Goodfellas light almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shutter Island, obviously in there. Great film. I just don't, and I could make a case to put it in my top 5, but then I just thought, look, it's not a film I go back to. That's if I think about the cycle, that's a once every 5 to 7 year rewatch, whereas the rest of them are kind of, in that 2 year cycle where you're watching it consistently. And then the last one is a bit out of left field. Hopefully a lot of people have heard of it who are listening, but he directed a music concert in the late 70s called The Last Waltz, which was a massive part of my childhood. I got a lot of music was a massive thing between my dad and me, and he sort of introduced me to that. He had the DVD and some iconic performances. I mean, it really the band's farewell performance, and you've got people like Van Morrison, Eric Clapton appearing on there among a lot of other people, and it's just shot. You can tell it's Scorsese. There's pans. It's shot beautifully, and I would really recommend if people like rock history. And I know he did a few more recent, like Shine a Light, and I don't know if he did one with the White Stripes or something. Maybe I'm making that up, but
I think he did.
If you want to see. Yeah, if you want to see the sort of the starting point of him, directing concerts and those kinds of things, I would really recommend The Last Waltz.
Nice one. That is a deep cut. And I haven't seen. Well, I've seen Casino obviously, but the other two I haven't seen, so definitely wants to put on the watch list. My honorable mentions are probably a bit more of the usual suspects, but we'll see. Gangs of New York, I think, is a hugely underrated film. Like people like that, a lot of people marked that. Like I talked about, Wolf of Wall Street being the downturn. Gangs of New York was the first one that really copped it. People were like, "This is really not Martin Scorsese," but it's great. I watched it a couple of years ago, and it looked bad because I was watching it on DVD because I don't have it on Blu-ray. But again, like that's Leo. Like that's the third mention of Leo. Like he's really good at it. It was my first exposure to Daniel Day-Lewis, and him playing Bill the Butcher is terrifying. And it was the first really violent film I'd ever seen. It was my gateway to cinema violence, which, as you know now, and people who follow the Instagram will know I'm a huge fan of cinema violence. Cameron Diaz is probably the weakest point of the film, but not because she's bad, and she feels like she's a bit miscast, but it's a really good film. Like it's really, it's definitely worth a watch, And Brendan Gleeson, I think, is in it as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and this one was one I didn't really. I mean, of course, scouring through his IMDb page, I came across it, and again, this is one of those ones where I'm never drawn to it, and I think there's some iconic moments that, like, I don't know why, but I will literally never forget Bill putting a knife against his glass eye. It's just stuck with me. There's some real creepy moments in it, but no, great film, but just not one that I sort of am regularly drawn back to.
Yeah. It's really good. Raging Bull is on my honorable mentions. It's a great film. It's the reason why it wasn't on, it's just a bit slow. Like I do like it, but it's a long film, and it's the pacing Scorsese was being Scorsese, like, look, I'm just going to tell the story the way I want to. And for me, because that's a little bit slow, like just when you think it's over, it's like, and now here's the whole part where he's old and fat. I'm like, oh, gee, there's so much more to go. Like it definitely drags on. But performances are great. To see, De Niro go to that shape and away from it and then back again. Like he was doing it before Christian Bale,
Yeah.
Taxi Driver, like I do like Taxi Driver quite a bit. It doesn't work for me the same way Fight Club doesn't work for me anymore, where it's like, oh, this is a really angry young man film. Like, whereas, it's like, I'm not to say it doesn't have substance, but it just feels like it's catering to a certain age. And I don't think that was his intention, but like, it's the kind of film where at 18, I would be like, this is amazing. And now as like a 33-year-old dad, I'm just like, I don't know. It doesn't work me the same way anymore.
Yeah.
And then the last one is Last Temptation of Christ, which is also a really long film. It's Willem Dafoe playing Jesus, which is a weird sentence in itself. But basically the whole
really controversial film.
Really controversial. And the whole idea, for those who haven't seen it, is Jesus, like, instead of getting nailed to the cross. It's like, you know what? I'm not going to be your savior, and gets married and has a kid and all sorts of stuff. And it's very interesting, but it is long and it's slow, and you have to and like I don't know whether he was really into the faith at the time or whether he was like, I'm going to really make sure I'm sticking close to the Bible as much as possible. Because of that, like it is a bit disarming. Where you're just kind of like, oh, okay, they're not talking a different language, but they are talking a language that's not common to my tongue, and now I have to kind of adapt to this biblical speak, and it is kind of a little bit jarring. So it's a really great film, like can't fault it technically, and the concept is just like, wow, I can't believe anyone was like, I'm going to do this, but just not quite a top 5 film, but definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, tough watch, but yeah, again, not one that I could squeeze into my list. But great performance by Willem Dafoe. I think people forget that he's been good for so many years. By the way,
He's never really been bad. Like he's always been doing making interesting decisions. The most recent of which is obviously in Spider-Man. Like, and it's so weird to be like, oh, Last Temptation of Christ and Spider-Man next to each other, but it's true. Like he's so villainous. If people like Willem Dafoe, I can't recommend enough Antichrist. It's really dark. It's not for everyone, but boy, if you want to see Willem Dafoe like do some interesting stuff in cinema, like Antichrist is definitely.
Is that a Lars von Trier
It
joint?
sure is. LVT himself. It's that's what the kids call him.
Those initials strike fear into my soul. Let me tell you.
Yeah, that guy's a dark filmmaker. I've got a couple of his that I'll revisit. Antichrist, I've only seen the once, but it's pretty graphic. There's some pretty graphic mutilation in there. Nymphomaniac, another one, which is really well done, but again very graphic, but not violently. It's more of a sexual nature.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I can kind of. They're not my cup of tea. Those films, but I can see that in the same way that I will sometimes go into a horror film. I might put on a horror just here on an evening because I just want to be overwhelmed with the fear that a horror can give you. You know, you just want that experience. You want to feel something like that, and I can appreciate what he's going for there. He's leaning a lot into his themes, but yeah, unfortunately, they're just not themes that I get a lot out of.
Yeah, like they're tough watches. Like even his last one, The House Jack Built, which I really enjoyed. I thought, and well, enjoy is not the right word, but like I thought it was really well made, and I thought it was really fascinating. And like Matt Dillon hadn't done anything for so long, and to see him come back and this is kind of like the story of a serial killer. Like, and I won't spoil the ending if people haven't seen it. It's a 4-year-old film, but it's a 2.5-hour film as well. And for me to spoil the ending is really going to ruin it for you. But it's basically like the life of a serial killer and covers like five of his most memorable victims. And it's really well made. It's a really great film. But yeah, enjoyable is not the right word. I think like with that film, what shocked, like there's just so many shocking things. Like there's this thing where like 'cause he dates women and then like he kind of plays the handsome awkward guy, and then like, you know, he's Ted Bundy. He's every serial killer. He kind of lures women back and then kills them. And there's one where he's with this woman, he's dating her, and like he starts hunting her children like with a rifle. It's so weird, and then starts turning them into like puppets in his workshop. It's the weirdest movie. And then like I remember there's a scene later which is with a girl, and like I guess he mutilates her or whatever. And we're going way off topic now, by the way. But I just feel like we went down the Lars von Trier rabbit hole, and like it just cuts to like outside, and like the camera pans past like a taxi or something, or a car with a broken window, and there's just like a boob on it because he's like cut into pieces. And I was like, Lars von Trier's off the chain. Like this is like this is the story he's telling. Like it's. So
I just want to
weird.
know if someone's like, yeah, he's being funded to make these films, but is someone checking in on him that he's all right?
Oh, it's but like definitely fascinating.
You mentioned that he's turning children into puppets. I'd love to get a shared universe with that fucking walrus film.
Tusk.
Tusk, yeah. Maybe like a Tusk universe where they team up or something like that.
I love Tusk. Tusk is. At some point, I'll do a Kevin Smith episode. I don't know who with. Maybe I got like no one seems to like him as much as I do. But at one point, I've got a friend who's a big Clerks fan. Maybe I'll be able to rope him in and do some Kevin Smith. But Tusk is, I love that film.
Down the track, if you want to do you can set like Kevin Smith homework, and maybe I'll try and watch like 3 films, and then you
That
can
might
get
be
like
something. Yeah.
perspective from someone who's been a lifelong fan versus someone who's sort of, I'm not a massive fan, and not out of dislike, but lack of exposure, really.
Yeah, I'll pick my 3 favorites. Tusk won't be on that list. I do like Tusk, but it's not on my list. I would say, well, Clerks obviously would be on there, and then probably Dogma.
Surely Chasing Amy.
It's not. I do like Chasing Amy quite a bit, but I watched it recently, and it's just it's a little bit dated, and like what was very progressive in the 90s is a little bit counter progressive in the present day. Like, and like that's not why it's not that I don't like it. I'm like, well, this film is bad. Like I do enjoy it, but there's better ones out there. But I'd probably say Clerks, Dogma, and Red State are probably the 3 that I would refer. But then like Clerks 2 is really good. And I'm in the minority here, but Jersey Girl, to me, like I love the movie the first time I saw it, and now watching it as a father, I'm like, it just destroys me. Like it's such a good movie. But I don't know. I'll come up with some homework, and yeah, maybe we'll do that at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, look, we're almost done. But what we do every episode is we finish with a couple of rapid fire questions. So you don't need to think about these too hard, but I will ask you a couple of questions. First thing pops in your head, give me an answer and see what comes up. So Nick, what was the last thing you watched?
Sadly, The Test.
Oh, what's that?
The Test is a 8-part documentary series on the Australian Test cricket team.
I thought it might be that, yeah.
In the wake of, I don't know if our listeners are going to have a shared love of sports and in particular cricket, but James, does the word sandpaper gate mean anything to you?
No.
You're aware of any scandal that ends in gate being particularly serious?
I remember Deflategate with Tom Brady a few years ago.
Yeah. So it's along those lines. So back in 2018, the cricket team was caught tampering with a cricket ball. So they had one of the players took some like a really tiny bit of sandpaper onto the field, and was like the way a cricket ball wears down after 10 or 20 overs. They try and keep one side of it shiny because it swings through the air. So they were just tampering with it with sandpaper. And they got caught. And so this documentary is really covering the next year and a half where they try and rebuild the team because a whole bunch of them got banned, and rebuild the culture because it was obviously a pretty crappy environment if they were cheating to win. And I've got to say, it's one of the better sports documentary series I've seen in quite a long time. It's really engaging. You get a real insight into what it's like to be in the changing rooms, which I think is what a lot of sports fans want to see out of these. They want to know what it's like. So really recommend that. And then I'll quickly give you a real answer of something theatrical. I just finished Only Murders in the Building, which I would highly recommend.
I haven't checked it out. Tina started watching it, and she was kind of like, "Do you want to watch this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll get to it." But if you want to, we're now at a point in our relationship where like we're not really waiting. Like if one of us wants to watch it and the other one's on the mood, we'll just watch it without him. Like that's where we're at. Otherwise, nothing gets watched. Side note: after 6 years of trying, Tina has started watching Daredevil.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We're about, I think we're 5 episodes into season 1. So we're not watching it every night because it is very dark. And like for her, she's like, yeah, she's like, I've made the joke a couple of times tonight. She's like, I'm a mum now, so like I don't need to see this kind of brutality every night. But she does seem to be digging it. She hates Fisk, which I think is the right answer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But she's finally watching with it. And because I said, look, just try it with me once more because we watched. Spoilers. It's been out for months. We watched Spider-Man. Daredevil shows up in it. We watched Hawkeye. If you haven't seen Hawkeye, I won't spoil it, but a character shows up in that as well. And Hawkeye was way better than it deserved to be. It was so good. So after that, I said, look, you've seen those characters show up. That wasn't really good representation of them, but they're going to show up again and again. It might be worth giving Daredevil a go now. And Tina was like, all right, I'll give it a go. And I was really cool about it. I said, look, just watch the first couple of episodes with me. You've seen the first one before, you didn't like it. So watch the first 2. If you're not into after that, we can stop. And she's still like, hey, let's watch some more Daredevil. So it only took almost a decade, but we're there.
Go Tina.
Yeah, it was good to see. So I've been enjoying that. All right, that was the first question. Nick, what's been sitting on your watch list forever?
Great question, James. I can tell you because I've got my list right here.
Because we've all got one. I mean, sometimes some of us have more than one, but we've always got that film where we're like, I'll get to it eventually, and we just keep putting it off for whatever reason.
Yeah, do you know what it is? It won't be forever because this movie isn't that old, but The Shape of Water.
Okay.
And that's because I do try and make a point of checking out those films that won, I think, the Academy Award for Best Picture 5 or 6 years ago, whenever it was. And it's rare that I don't try and see those important few films that come out in a year. But for some reason I missed it, and just I haven't quite had the inclination to go back and find it, whether it's on a streaming service. I don't know. But yeah, so that's probably a film that's been on my list for too long and I need to just watch.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, like, it's a weird one. It's Del Toro's, of course, it's strange, but like it's wonderful. Like, it's really, really good. And Michael Shannon gives one of the, like, I mean, he's a guy who's full of dark, weird performances, but like he really just goes out on a limb in this one. So great. Cool. So are you a movie crier?
I wasn't for a long time, but I think with maturity and life experiences and going through adversity, I am proudly, I do well up. I cry. I'm going to just count welling up as crying because I don't ever just like bawl. But yeah, definitely.
You'll get there, my friend. I am an ugly crier in movies. I'm very proud about it. I always talk about it. I don't really cry in real life, but movies, like, you put me in front of like The Big Sick, like, don't even talk to me. Like, that's it. Toy Story 3, I'm done. Like,
yeah. There's of course, Big Sick is a perfect example of a film where I would well up. Anything that's got real, for lack of a better word, anything that's like really is quite a sad film. But I well up with inspiration and, like, for an example, and I don't know if it was because I went and saw this film after a terrible night's sleep, so I was really tired, emotions probably running high. But Avengers Endgame, On Your Left, I was just, and like the music swells and all the Avengers who got dusted come back. I was like, just like sniffling in the cinema, just trying to keep it in.
Pretty much that last half, like 45 minutes or so, like from On Your Left through till I'll Get You All the Cheeseburgers You Want, is just a non-stop cry fest. And it's a really weird wave of emotions. And like, I'm going to sound like a real nerd now, but that's fine. Like, On Your Left is obviously a big one. And then like just seeing everyone come through the portals. And then at one point you see Valkyrie riding a Pegasus, cutting up a giant space worm, and Spider-Man's hanging on. And I remember I was crying. So I'm like, this is I can't believe this is happening. Like, it was such like childlike, joyous tears where I'm like, this is the most amazing thing I've seen in film. Like, because they've never done, like, just think about that sentence. Valkyrie on a Pegasus with a spear and a giant space worm, and Spider-Man swinging behind. Like, it sounds ridiculous. Yeah. And then obviously the death of Tony, but that line about the cheeseburgers like kills me every time. And then recently, I won't go into too much spoilery details, but Spider-Man No Way Home, like, from the line about responsibility, and that's as much as I'll spoil, because I was just like, they did it. We finally got that line, and it was delivered perfectly. Everything that follows that, right up until the scene where they're in the lab. So, because I'm just like, this is happening. Oh my goodness! Like, and you have such a nostalgic. I mean, spoilers. It's been out forever. It's Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Like, everyone knew this already, but like seeing them come in, like, I cried because like, oh my god, like I knew this was happening, and still to see it happen, like, I was in the theater 22 years earlier seeing Spider-Man for the first time, to see him back, like to see him acknowledge that things got a bit weird in the trilogy towards the end, and he's working through it, and to see Andrew Garfield get that redemption, he gets that savior moment. Like,
did you saw that in the cinema, I presume?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Did your session cheer?
There weren't cheers, but there were some gasps. There were a couple of like, yeah, but it wasn't cheering. But a lot of people, and which this to me shows the extent of the fandom. This is how far it reached. When he saves MJ, like, I burst into tears. So I was like, yes, like, finally he got to do what he couldn't do in last one.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the only one. And I was in a gold class cinema, so it wasn't like it was a full theater. people had seen that movie and like it meant so much. Where they're like, we saw him fail previously, and now he gets redemption. And there's this beautiful line where I found out it was ad libbed because he goes, "Are you okay?" And then she goes, "Yeah, are you?" And it's just like, what a brilliant ad lib by Zendaya, like to say that.
Yeah.
Like, so long story short, yeah, I'm a movie crier.
Again, not to sidetrack this quick so-called rapid fire section. You should have known it was going to go pear-shaped with me, but am I the only one who wants to see now? So I went, I reckon at least 50% of the audience, I went home and I'm like, yep, I'm going to rewatch Toby's 3 and I'm going to rewatch Andrew Garfield's 2. And I don't love the way he plays Peter Parker, Andrew Garfield. Bit too
cool, bit too sexy.
Yeah. Well, no, not so much that. Just a bit too like
not sexy enough. Okay.
yeah. But I couldn't put my finger on it. But like, I want to see go back to his universe and see this like damaged, and maybe in the wake of what's just happened in No Way Home. But like I thought he was the standout of all 3, to be honest, and I thought it was going to be Toby because he's the OG. So
I watched the original trilogy before No Way Home. I was going to try and watch all of them, and I just couldn't. Like with everything, I just couldn't get through them. But I got through I couldn't get to it. But I watched the original trilogy, and I love all 3 of those films. And I'm not saying this like post No Way Home. Like I've always loved all 3 of them. Spider-Man 3 was my first date movie with Tina, so it has a real soft spot. I have a real soft spot for it. It's not that bad a film. The last time I watched it previously, we reviewed it on Past the Remote. Tina and I did, and I said it makes a lot of interesting decisions, but it always just makes the wrong turn. Rewatching it, people just really misunderstood that film. Like, yeah, there's some weird stuff, but the whole point is the symbiote is giving him misplaced confidence. Like, it's confidence he shouldn't have. And if you look at the way it plays out, people are reacting accordingly. Like when he's dancing, people are like, "What's wrong with this guy? Why is he dancing?" Like, it actually it took a little while, but it's. And even I, have criticized in the past. Watching it, I'm like, you know what? It knows what it's doing. And then the Andrew Garfield films, I've always said this as well. I like the Electro film better. And I know a lot of people are like, "What are you talking about?" Or like, "Oh, sure, No Way Home." No, like I like the lizard one fine. It's fun, but like the lizard is kind of an uninteresting villain to me. That second one, I was thrilled. I'm like, yes, we're doing Sinister Six. Show me that. Show me this. Like we got Green Goblin in here. Like, yeah, it's a bit rushed, but I don't care. We got Rhino at the end. He's back as Spider-Man. He saves the kid. Like, this is fantastic. His Peter is a little bit weak, and at least in those movies, his Peter's a lot better in No Way Home. And same with Tobey Maguire. His Spider-Man is not quite as good as his Peter Parker. Like Tom Holland kind of nails both, but they both do a pretty good job. In terms of future movies, Andrew Garfield has been all over the internet saying, like, "Hey, if they want me, I'm in. Like, I'll do another one." And same with Tobey. I think he's got a pretty open door there. And there's a lot of campaigns for Spider-Man 4 and Amazing Spider-Man 3. But the thing that is interesting is if you watch the trailer for Morbius, which is that Jared Leto vampire movie, which is a Spider-Man spin-off movie, the Oscorp logo on the Oscorp building is the same one from the Andrew Garfield films. The Daily Bugle logo on the newspaper is the same from the Tobey Maguire ones. And there's a scene where they walk past a spray-painted like graffiti of Spider-Man says "Murderer," and it's the same Spider-Man suit that Andrew Garfield wore. And in No Way Home, he says he stopped pulling his punches. He got dark. He started hurting people. So I wonder whether Morbius is in this Andrew Garfield universe.
That sounds like a pretty sweet bit of detective work from whoever saw that stuff. I don't know who picks up on these kind of things, but yeah.
And people are like, why couldn't Tom Hardy be Venom? Because obviously, if you say for the post-credit sequences, he's not in the film. Like he comes and goes in the post. Like he appears at the end of Venom, Let There Be Carnage. He gets transported into the MCU. At the end of No Way Home, he gets transported out again. Like he doesn't stick around, but he leaves a bit of symbiote behind. But it's like, well, why couldn't he be the Venom to Andrew Garfield Spider-Man? Like that would kind of be cool. And then you get to have those two. We got way off track, but like it's such a good movie. And it really, I'm glad people are appreciating the Spider-Man movies more now. All right, rapid fire question. I think I know the answer to this one already. Which actor or actress will you follow anywhere?
Probably Leo.
Yeah, I knew it. I was like, this after the episode we've had, it's got to be Leo.
He's just to quickly vamp on that answer. Yeah. Also, I was never going to zag on which is my like favorite actor. It's always going to be Leo. He's like the Nolan of actors, and what I mean by that is like he's never tied to a specific role.
Yeah.
Everything he's doing is a choice, and it's a specific choice. It usually works. Is the key. He's usually great, and I don't think I even watched Don't Look Up, which I don't think was particularly good. But there's no way I would have watched that if it was just like a lesser actor. So yeah.
I think, and you're right, like he's not like one of my favorite. I do like Leo, but he's not someone that I necessarily follow. But I have seen a lot of the stuff he's in. He's one of the few actors I don't want to see play a superhero. Like when people do fan casts and stuff, because apparently at one point he was rumored. Well, I think actually it might have been even James Cameron, because at one point James Cameron was meant to make a Spider-Man movie, and then it ended up going to Sam Raimi. And I think the rumor was because they'd done Titanic together that Leo was up for that, up for that role. I don't want to see him in a superhero film. Like I don't want to see him in a comic book movie. Like I like that he makes all these interesting choices. I like that he can do Django and he can do Titanic, which is really, I was gonna say underrated. Like people love Titanic, but I always had this kind of for a long time a prejudice against that film because I'm like, oh, it's just like a girly film about a boat. But like it is, like Titanic's brilliant. Like it's a really well made film. As I get older, I can appreciate it. Like he does all these interesting films and goes back and forth. I don't need to see him put on a superhero outfit. I don't need to see him play a villain in a comic book movie. Like I think it would be as good as those Marvel films are and most of those DC films are. I think he'd be wasted. I just don't think there's a role you can give him where you're not gonna create a film that's gonna be on par with his talent. Like it's the same reason I wouldn't want to see Daniel Day-Lewis in a comic book film. There are a couple of actors who just they're not popcorn movie guys. They make art films, like, and even though, people might be like, oh yeah, Wolf of Wall Street's an art film. It's just a different caliber of movie. I don't need to see him in those kind of popcorn films. And I think
it's a really good point.
It would lessen the appeal of him. People are like, oh, okay, well, he's made the switch to these movies, so okay. Like, and I love these movies, so I'm not criticizing the genre. It just doesn't seem like a match that would work well. All right.
I'll just say a quick honorable mention because, like coming in very close second place would be Tom Cruise, because he's just been an ever-present person in my life from growing up on Top Gun all the way through. I mean, I don't know how it's possible. I know he's very divisive, but I'd also just give him a shout out because, like, from Top Gun through to Mission Impossible 6, I mean that's like 40 years nearly of just nothing but net, So I'll just give a shout out to my boy Tom Cruise. I know
You definitely made me appreciate him more because I was in the other camp. I'm like, Tom Cruise. I didn't dislike him, and he'd done some interesting stuff. Like obviously, Tropic Thunder, like is one that people go to because just like that's Tom Cruise. Collateral, another one. Like just seeing him do these different performances, like actual performances. Like he's a movie star. He doesn't have to, he doesn't have to do performances. He can just show up, do the thing he's known for, and people will love it. And he's great at that. But to see him go outside of his comfort zone, it was really cool. But you really got me on board with the Mission Impossible train. Like I have now seen all of them, and even though I wouldn't rank them in my favorite films, they're definitely great popcorn films. I'm like, oh yeah, this is entertaining. How do you feel about the rumors that he might be playing Iron Man, like a variant Iron Man? Is that something you're down for, or?
I don't know if I need to see him in a superhero outfit and in the MCU or anything like that. Like he has his lane, he has his things, and like I think about the characters he tends to play in this sort of later part of his career, is, your Jack Reachers, he's still playing Ethan Hunt. There's a type that he plays, and I think and like I'll be the first person to say he doesn't stretch very far, but because he's quite short, but
it cuts deep for me because I'm also a short guy, but anyway.
But I don't know, like I'd see it. I'd definitely see it. I don't know if I need to see it though.
I don't think. I mean, if the rumors are true, and like I've seen a couple of photos, but you know how these leaks go. Like some of them are real, and some of them are definitely like fake. If he shows up in one scene in Doctor Strange as just a different Iron Man, and that's it, like it's kind of cool that he did it. Like he doesn't have to do it. Like he's making plenty of money. He's got his own lane, as you mentioned. He also had obviously the very memorable role of playing Austin Powers in Goldmember. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, how could I forget?
Cool. What was the worst movie you ever saw?
Jeez. I'll give you the worst. Maybe like one of my biggest disappointments as I think of it, because I can tell you like the worst, but it was like always designed to be a piece of shit. So something like The Room, or those ones that are just purposefully bad.
The Room's a gold star film. Don't even try to shut The Room down.
Geez, worst film. It's actually, I find that a really hard one to answer, because I tend to just, if I don't like the look of something, I don't watch it. I'm going to throw a really recent one under the bus, and I'm sorry, it's probably not answering your question accurately, but I was really disappointed in Don't Look Up.
Yep.
There's a lot of hype. Everyone in it is really good individually, but I don't know. I was annoyed while I was watching it. I was actively just like, why is this film here? Like, it's really annoying. And I'm not someone who's anti that message at all of like, looking after the climate and stuff like that. That's not it at all. But it just, I don't know. It was a very irritating film. Everyone was annoying in it. So that's probably one of the more disappointing films I've seen lately.
That's it. Look, it's hard. Like, I spent the first half of the show being like, "Look, there's no bad films. I don't dislike anything," and then be like, "By the way, which is the worst film you've ever seen?" Cool. Last question: which film should they never remake?
I'm going to go with something super popular here. I don't think I'd see a little cameo of like Tom Cruise playing Iron Man, but I don't want to see a reboot of Iron Man.
Yeah. A film they will inevitably remake, but yeah.
No, but and that's why I raised it, because like we're in this reboot culture where like give it 5 or 10 years and you can just like restart everything. But like, to me, who's going to want to play Iron Man after Robert Downey Jr. has like crushed it for 10 years? Like, it's so iconic, and I don't know. I think Marvel's going to struggle without him and Chris Evans. I think that you can see that there's been a few diminishing returns on their more recent films. I actually haven't seen the two most recent, not for that reason, just because you can't get to a cinema these days.
That's interesting. Look, this is not the time or the place to have that conversation, because we've been going on for almost 2 hours. But I've been really enjoying the most of the stuff they put out. Like, Loki was a bit of a disappointment for me, but I loved WandaVision. I really liked Falcon Winter Soldier. I really enjoyed like kind of the creativity of What If. Hawkeye, as I said, like, I was shocked how much I liked it. And then one of my favorite Marvel films in a long time was Shang-Chi. Like, it was my favorite standalone film since Homecoming, until I saw Far From Home, and then No Way Home, and then that took over. And Eternals got some interesting stuff. Like, Eternals is definitely the weakest of the lot, I think. I liked Eternals more than Loki. But yeah. But look, I mean, you're right. Like, they had two powerhouses. But the good thing is we don't know that Captain America's dead, so he could always come up again if he wanted to.
Well, that's true. That's true.
That's it. That's the show. Did you have anything you wanted to plug or shout out before we wrap it up?
No, I'll reiterate, down with IP. Bring on independent ideas in cinema.
He's starting a flame war, guys.
Check out Power of the Dog. That was great, with old Benedict Cumberbatch. It's on Netflix. That was really fantastic.
Nice. This is a good one.
But look, no, nothing to plug. You could plug my social media, but I haven't posted anything since the last time. You would have done that like 5 years ago. So
no worries. Well, look, Nick Owen will definitely be back on again. As you can see, he has plenty to say. One of my favorite people to speak to in the world. You can follow the podcast on Instagram. I was a teenage film snob. It's true, I'm James Chalmers. I was a film snob, but I am trying to get better. We'll see you next week.